Good evening, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. Tonight we continue with episode 2 of Horror on the Orient Express with yours truly as the Game Master. Before we begin, let's do a recap. Tom will do the recap for us today.
Okay. Hi there, everybody. So last week we were introduced to the Hughes family, who had recently contacted Miskatonic and the Arcane Society to investigate a recent sighting upon a pond, more like a lake, by their home. Those were sent out were Frank Coates, Giles Xavier, Everett Nicholas, and Dr. Theodore Dawkins. They went out and met with the Hughes and did some preliminary research on the actual site. They took a look at the pond, they did sounding tests, they went to town and asked around town about any sightings. At night, however, around midnight, the full moon arose, and they were greeted with the vision of a great ghost ship. When Wayne's character, Dr. Theodore Dawkins, put his hand into the ghost ship, he could feel the electricity coming from it. Eventually, it dissipated, but our friend Frank Coates, the photographer and cinematographer, got a picture of it and a video of it, proving its authenticity. Tom?
That's cool. All right, so where exactly did we leave off? I remember that it vanished, and you were all very excited. Were you planning on going back to Arkham? And did you want to drive out tonight, or did you want to?
We'll stay with the family. Well, I'll stay with the family for the rest of the evening, and perhaps even get breakfast with them in the morning if they allow it, and head back.
Does everybody think that sounds like a good idea?
Yep.
All right. So that's exactly what you do, and you're all very excited, and you have a little bit of trouble sleeping because you're so excited that you've actually seen something. You pack up your equipment and you head on back to Arkham. You leave about 8 o'clock in the morning, and how long did we say it takes? 4 hours? Or
about 4 hours.
About 4 hours. So noontime is when you're arriving. And I can ask you where you're going to go, but I assume you're going to go straight to Corbin Hall, where your little office is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Tom, what are you doing?
So, what day is it? Would I be at Corbin Hall? Would I be with this with the inner circle, just discussing things and cataloging, or would I be at home or at work?
You're probably at home, unless you had some research you were doing yourself.
Let's say that I'm at Corbin Hall looking over case files from other investigators that we have out in the field, because I assume we do have that.
Okay, and you were probably told by Professor Hewitt what was going on, and you were, I've missed it, but yeah.
That happens.
So we'll say that you're there at Corbin Hall in the back room, putting stuff together from, I don't know, maybe whatever your trip was to New York, and the others arrive and come filing in with all of their stuff, quite excited.
Okay.
Right.
When I hear them coming in, I'm sitting at a table. I take off my glasses and fold them and put them into my coat pocket and just kind of sit up and look at them as they approach.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gentlemen?
Good day. you missed quite an adventure, sir.
Did I?
Indeed you did. Let us show you what we've discovered here on the Hughes farm.
Do you have something for me?
And I turn to Frank and I say, when will you be able to get the recordings, the actual movie recordings, ready to show?
Yeah, that's actually a good question.
It'll probably take him a few hours at the Miskatonic.
I know for standard film would probably, but I'm not sure what the difference. Like, would I be able to have the capability to do the film edit development?
Yeah, probably at the like I said, at the Miskatonic in the photography department.
Okay, so yeah, probably a couple hours.
This will be a wonderful addition to the collection of things that we've actually proven.
Indeed.
Now, I mean,
It
we've never
was
proven
amazing.
anything, but
It really was. It was amazing. I mean, I ran out of ideas to question the validity of it.
so there was no possibility of Fata Morgana or any other optical illusions that night. It was a full moon.
It was a full moon. No optical illusions. I got right on top of the ship itself, and what I could say that it felt like it was electrically charged. I ran my hand through it, and my hand actually passed through the ship, but I felt this sort of electrical charge, and I smelled like the faint odor of ozone as well.
Okay.
It's quite fascinating.
Okay.
I don't know how someone could think that.
As Wayne's talking, as Dr. Theodore is talking, I pull out my pocketbook and I'm writing furiously everything that he's saying, documenting every single aspect of this.
Mhm.
I look at the other three and I say, "Is that all?"
Well, I run down the schematics of the ship. It's about 20 feet long. It's about 20 feet as far as the width, and about 16 to 18 feet high. The name on the ship was the Valkyrie II, and by 2 it's Roman numeral 2.
Valkyrie 2.
Yes.
All
Let
right.
me, I couldn't quite hear what the measurements you gave, but just to reiterate, it's 117 feet long,
Okay.
22 feet wide, 16 feet high.
Well, I'll make that correction. Thank you.
It was kind of jumpy, so I wasn't sure what you said.
Sorry.
Okay. And so I cross out the original numbers and add in the new numbers. I raise my eyebrows and I look at the other two and I say, "Anything from your end?"
I think, for the record, too, it was, I don't know the right word, maybe brave of you to reach out and attempt to touch the ship, but next time, maybe wear some gloves or something, or...
Well, I mean, if it was a forgery, then my hand would have passed through it, and I could have said it was a light show of some sort. But the only best way to find out what's real out there is to get out there and to handle it yourself.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, yeah, I think you might have been lucky because it was electricity was involved and you were on water, and if the charge were high enough, we might be telling a different story.
True.
Frank, I'll need a photo from you as soon as possible. And then, let's see here. Everett, anything when surveying?
Not that I could notice that would be out of the ordinary.
All right. And I just tap it. Now, Tom, would the president of the society be waiting to talk with them? Would Edwin be willing to talk to them right now? I mean, they did find some big important thing, and would I know about that?
Oh, sure. I mean, he'd be eager to hear what you had to say. Most definitely. I mean, and you came straight here, but Yeah, he doesn't live too far away.
Okay. So I'll grab all of the loose papers, just kind of crumple them up to myself, and I'll say, Edwin, Dr. Hewitt would probably wish to speak with you as soon as possible. Of course, most of the things we've encountered are fakes, hoaxes. If you believe that this is real, then it's best that you go talk to him. Of course, I'm sure that with the film, the authenticity can be even more sound, but the picture should be enough. And of course, Dr. Dawkins' experience with touching the ship itself.
The other thing too is that this is a monthly occurrence, so if we need to go back and verify it again, we can do so within a month's time.
When was the first time this was encountered? Has this always been happening?
He said it started about, I believe he said something about 6 months ago. That's when it began.
I believe I'm looking through my little notebook, and I believe it was 7 times. He was actually unclear, but he said at one point he said 7 times, so that would have been 7 months.
All right. And you determined he was of sound mind?
Yes.
Yeah, there was alcohol involved, but from what we saw, it wasn't abused.
Well, that far out, there's not much to do but drink alcohol and work the field, so understandable. All right, well, if that's all, I will accompany you to Dr. Hewitt. I've got files for him myself, so...
Is there any request for prints? I know we were supposed to send information to Mr. Smith, I believe. Smythe?
Would I know anything about that, Tom?
Yes, you have read the
telegram.
The telegram. Yeah, that's after you guys have everything together. You need to send him at least a copy of everything.
Okay. Frank, do you have a copy?
Well, I'll probably make. I like to keep one for myself, obviously, one for the group here, and then maybe just one for Mr. Smythe. And of course, if anybody else wants something, I'm glad to.
Well, I'm sure that Dr. Hewitt would love to see the negative. So
right, I assume we would, you guys, the group would keep the negatives.
Yes.
I don't think it would be personally mine.
They'd probably all be stored right here in this room.
Right.
You've got all of the previous stuff in this room.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I take out my glasses and I put them on because I want to be able to see when I walk. And I say, "Shall we go?" And I walk across around the table and I just walk off.
All right. One other thing I'm going to put into my report. It seems that this is just a plain ship. There's no sort of attacks on any of the Hughes or anything like that. So it's not a violent occurrence. So it's just an appearance of an apparition of a ship.
Okay. So I write down everything as I'm walking. So as you're telling me this, I'm just like looking down at my notebook and scribbling as I walk out of the room.
All right, so you're going to head over to Professor Hewitt's house. I want to put this up here on the screen just because I didn't do it last time for the people who are watching the show, so they can see what he looks like and what the crest of the Arcane Society looks like. All right, so you're going to head over to his house, and he's actually once again sitting on his porch. Smoking a pipe, and he sees you coming, and he's like, "Well, I'm very excited to see what you've come up with. Come inside, please."
I hold out the folders and I say, "I have the research from New York for you, sir. Frank has the negative of the ship that you sent him to."
Is he getting all of that processed?
I believe so. He should be right behind me.
Oh.
If not behind me. If not behind me, he's a few minutes out. I did leave them in the library. I don't know if they did come or not.
Well, he'll need to process the film before we have the negative.
Of course. Well, you can tell him that yourself, sir. I'm
sure he knows he's a photographer.
Yes.
I'm very eager to see the photography and the movie.
Yes, the movie. I think that should allow us to see any details that were missed during the actual event.
Wonderful. And were you able to identify the ship?
The Valkyrie II, sir.
Well, that's interesting. Have you been able to research that yet?
I have not, but I can go out and look myself at the Arkham libraries, or maybe even go to the town and look for some records.
I believe that you might try, at the Miskatonic Library. I think Professor Armitage actually is a fancier of old ships and old ocean lore, so he might actually be somebody you might want to contact about that.
Well, I've been away from the group for too long, so maybe I should wait for them and take them along with me.
Yes, this is probably a good idea. So, when do you think you can have the film ready, Frank?
I'm there. I thought I was actually developing the film.
Oh, okay. You weren't following along behind me.
I'm with him though. I am with him. So
you're with Frank?
No, I'm with.
You're with
Cole. Yeah, Eldridge.
Okay. So Frank is missing. Frank is at the university, getting the film and everything ready. So you chit-chat with Hewitt for a few minutes, and he basically says, well, Professor Smythe is going to be extremely pleased. He thought this just had the ring of legitimacy to it. We'll have to, of course, analyze everything, but I'm quite excited. From your description, it sounds quite thrilling.
Now, has there been any sort of recordings of maybe ghost apparitions giving off an electrical charge?
It's not really my field of study. Julius actually did quite a bit of research in that area. He's when he was president and I was the vice president, he'd actually spearheaded a lot of stuff, especially in England before he ever moved here, trying to catalog apparitions and things of that nature. I think he preferred to call them hauntings. I can't remember why. But anyways, please, continue your research and keep me apprised of the situation.
Indeed, we will, sir. Indeed.
All right, so what would you guys like to do now?
I want to head to the library.
All right.
I'll head to the library as well.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll join him. 'Cause why not?
All right. So you're all gonna go to the library, and of course Frank's already not too far away on the campus doing what he does. All right. So you arrive at Miskatonic Library, and there are a few people reading books, and you're probably already familiar with Henry Armitage, who's basically the head librarian in charge of library studies. He's an older gentleman. His office is, back behind the counter. And you in fact see him there doing something with some books.
Okay.
So you're free to simply walk up to him.
Who will take lead?
Ah, the gentleman from the Arcane Society. How are you all doing today?
Quite well, sir. How about you?
Well, I'm doing just fine. I can just assume that you're here to do some sort of research. What can I help you with?
We need some information about, I believe, a sailing ship.
Ah,
Yes.
I fancy sailing ships. That's very interesting. What sort of sailing ship? A schooner, a three-masted old galleon, or what sort of sailing ship?
It looked more like a pleasure yacht.
Oh, a modern pleasure yacht.
Yes, modern.
Do you have any
Well,
details?
Yeah, and I give him the basic details of, what we recorded, including the name.
Oh, and the name was?
The Valkyrie II, Roman numeral
Valkyrie
2.
2. Valkyrie 2. Now that sounds familiar. Come into my office. Come.
Okay.
So you go into his office, and he sort of becomes distracted. He's not paying much attention to you, but he's going through things rather, like, Valkyrie 2, Valkyrie 2. Why does that sound so familiar to me? And then suddenly he grabs this book and he's like, I remember. And he opens up the book, and he shows you a picture. Let's see. He says, here we go, the Valkyrie II. It was a racing yacht from the Royal Yacht Squadron. It was sponsored by the United Kingdom. It was designed by George Lennox Watson. Launched in April 29th, 1893. Pull it up. And its owner was, let's see, the owner was Wyndham Thomas Wyndham Quinn, the 4th Earl of Dunraven.
Now, you say was. Does that mean the ship was destroyed or decommissioned?
It says that the ship was stolen and never recovered, no trace, from Bay Harbor Marina, Sandy Hook, New Jersey, July 5th, 1894.
Okay, so I'm just vigorously writing it all down.
And that's Lord Dunraven there and his Valkyrie II. It was, he says it was a British racing yacht. It was the unsuccessful challenger of the 8th America's Cup race in 1893 against the American defender, the Vigilant. It did not win.
So, I then don't save the pleasantries, and I turn to Theodore and I say, do you think that maybe the ship wasn't a ghost ship, then? If it was stolen and no one's ever seen it, it wasn't destroyed, and there was no violent end to it, do you think that maybe something you saw was incorrect?
Well, I would, if it was just what I saw, perhaps, but I went up and I actually touched it, and my hand went through it, so unless...
What do you mean you touched it? What are you talking about?
I was just saying, and I basically explained the entire story, the ghost story.
Oh, that's quite interesting. I should be very intrigued to see the pictures at next month's Arcane Society meeting.
We also have a film on that as well.
Remarkable.
Yes.
You're going to have quite a few new members show up for that one.
We're just hoping, especially if we can gain more grants for our society.
Well, gentlemen, I'm actually kind of busy at the moment, but you're certainly welcome to take this book and borrow it. I know where I can find it if I need it.
Of course.
Just bring it back when you're done.
And I will take the book.
Do you have any more information of the owner of that ship?
Lord Dunraven. I don't know. That one you could probably find some research on. He was 4th Earl of Dunraven and Mount Earl. He did move to the United States. Lived in New York. I don't have any idea how old he was, or how old he is, or if he's still alive, or nothing like that. But I'm sure you can find. My guess was just go to the yacht club. If he's still around, they'd know where he was.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Tom, as I'm assuming that like now we're like leaving the office.
Sure.
I turn to Everett, our archaeologist, and I say, Everett, you are an archaeologist, and therefore you know something about geography, correct?
A little.
Were there any rivers that connected to the ocean and the lake?
All we noticed was a marshy area around the pond, not big enough to bring the ship into this pond.
Strange.
And
Because
you're a long way from the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only
The
that,
pond is.
but from what the Hughes were able to tell us, that pond is something that's basically gathers a lot of rainwater, things like that. So it's not coming in from a different source. It's actually spilling out because it's when it rises or during rainy seasons, it spills out and causes the area to be all marshy. And swampy, I should say.
Well, Tom, is it generally, or do we generally know that like hauntings don't move around, but they're very localized to where the event happened?
You
I have to roll a check.
You don't know anything in particular about hauntings. I mean, there's every story in the world about ghosts and stuff like that.
A ghost ship.
There's nothing really written specifically about this kind of apparition. I mean, there's lore. The only thing about lore is, there's all sorts of stories about things appearing and disappearing, and and they're there on a regular basis, and then they disappear forever and never show up again. And,
my main worry here, and I wag my finger and I take off my glasses, is that this could be a Flying Dutchman situation. It could move from lake to lake. It just appeared only 6 months ago, but it disappeared years ago. Flying Dutchman moved around quite a bit. It was sighted in different places all over. Maybe this also. I mean, if this is real, of course, and I do want to believe it is.
I have a question. Who owned the property? Maybe we could do some research on this, but who owned the property that the Hughes are currently on?
The Hughes.
So it's been in their family for generations.
Generations, yeah. Yeah, they've been farmers for a long time. So Jeff, by now you've probably, I'm sorry, I keep calling you by Jeff. Frank, you've processed your film and your photographs by now.
Yep.
They're probably still a little wet, but you're very excited.
Running down the hall, my arm is full,
and you've made 3 copies of the movie and multiple copies of the film. Only one negative for the film, only one negative for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's just the way that it is.
Yep.
And it all catches on fire, and that's the end. No. That would suck. But that's you've probably actually made maybe even more copies because you'd want to keep something somewhere in a separate archive so that if something happened to the one that if the library burned down, then you'd still have a copy somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all.
I'm figuring definitely at least 3, and then I'd probably run off 3 to 5 more just for everybody who was there who would want one. And
you probably have a protocol that you follow for anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So where are you? We'll just say that as you're walking across the campus, you see them leaving the library. Do you guys leave the library?
I'll leave the library. I'll start heading back to the historical society. The
Arcane Society, the Corbin Library.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll assume you all end up back at Corbin Library.
Yeah.
And so what would you like to do? Do you think that you've probably got enough research, or do you want to continue to pursue something?
I'm actually going to see if I can get in contact with the racing club, the yacht racing club, to see if
Well, let's do some things for brevity, okay? Mm-hmm. Over the course of the next few days, you contact the yacht club, the Bay Harbor Marina in New Jersey, and the little bit of information that you discover was the ship was actually in the dock. It was anchored, and 1 minute it was there, and the whoever was in charge of the docks, was doing whatever he was doing, filing something away, and when he looked out the window, the ship was gone. And they had no other choice but to report it as stolen. However, he says there's no way it could have been stolen. You would have had to have moved other ships out of the dock to move this ship out of the dock. They thought that it had sunk, but the water's not deep enough there for it to have actually completely submerged. So they were baffled, and they finally, there was nothing they could do but just declare it as stolen. But in fact, it vanished with no explanation. Lord Dunraven is dead. He died just a couple of years ago, in his 80s.
This is before or after the ship was vanished?
The ship vanished in 1894.
Okay.
So quite a few years ago.
Okay.
In fact, it vanished. It only, you could almost say that it only existed for a year, because it was originally launched in 1893, and it vanished in 1894. So it didn't have much of a career. And there was also stories that Lord Dunraven himself was kind of had always assumed that it was sabotage from some other rival, but could never prove it. And really, that's about all the information that you come up with. You, of course, you find out all the little details on who designed the ship and everything else, but none of that seems to really go anywhere. So after a week or so, and of course you've had Professor Hewitt and the other members of the society, of the inner circle, view the material and analyze it, and it seems hard to refute, any detail in it. There's no red flags raised at all. It seems to defy any kind of skeptical analysis. Now, of course, anybody who wasn't actually there can say, it's a fake. You faked it. Somehow you faked it. But you know that you didn't fake it.
Interesting.
And so after about a week or so, you put all this stuff together into a crate, and not a copy of it all, and you send it to Professor Smythe in London. Two other things. A month later, you once again go to the Hughes' farm. This time, Eldridge is with you, because he wants to see this damn thing for himself.
Yeah, I want to see what's real or not.
It's colder this time, and the water hasn't frozen solid. There's little, you could still push a boat out into it, but it's getting crackly. You do pretty much exactly the same thing you did the last time. You you take careful measurements and you take some more photographs and some more cinematography. You might bring a few other people from the society who want to witness this, but
Everybody.
but this time it only shows up for 7 minutes. The following month you do it again, and it only flickers on for 30 seconds or so and then flickers back out again. And following that time, it doesn't seem to show up again. And eventually you might send just one person out there to see if it's going to show up again, but it doesn't show up again. And you also tell the Hughes family, if it shows up again, call us, you know.
So my theory about it being like the Flying Dutchman, it shifts. It's there, then it's gone.
That would seem to be the case.
Okay.
So, a few months go by, and now we're in the middle of the summer of 1922, and you receive a note from Professor Hewitt once again, inviting you over for crumb cake and coffee. And the same sort of situation. You all end up at his house, and he's got big smiles on his face. And what he does is he hands you once again a telegram from Professor Hewitt. Let me find my button.
Nice.
So I'll have one of you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Professor Smythe, you mean?
Yeah. What did I say?
Hewitt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, from Professor Smythe. One of you can read this. Everett, why don't you read it?
Okay.
Can you read it clearly?
Yeah, I think so. Professor Edwin Hewitt, Miskatonic University. Teddy, good news. Beat that upstart Marconi. Stop. We'll give Challenger Foundation Lecture, Imperial Institute Banquet, January 3rd at 8. Stop. Wanted to invite members to attend, especially our intrepid band of investigators. Stop. Plenty of time to plan trip. Stop. Also fantastic new mine exhibit Maudsley collection at British Museum. Stop. Dress warmly. Stop. Julius Arthur Smythe. End.
All right, so you have all been invited to London to the Challenger Lecture. Now, the Challenger Lecture is given by the Imperial Institute. They invite prominent individuals to speak, and so you've got a few months to plan a trip to London. And you'll get to meet Professor Smythe. And I mean, you already know Professor Smythe, but you'll get to see him again. So, with that in mind, our next little scene would be you going to a travel agent, since you all want to travel together.
Okay.
And the travel agent is a Mr. Robertson, and he basically explains what you have available. You will be traveling on the SS Leviathan, which is a steamship. It should take a few days to cross the ocean, and you have your choice of places to stay when you are in London, which I will show you, just for the fun of it. You have, as your choices, the Ritz. Let me present that to everyone. These are some of the finer hotels. You have the Ritz. You have Claridge's. You have the Carlton. Or if you want to be kind of cheap, you can stay at the Midland Grand, which is nice, but it's not the Carlton, and it's not the Claridge's, and it's not the Ritz. So you guys can discuss amongst yourselves where you'd like to stay.
I personally like the look of the Carlton. Yes.
I like the look of the of Claridge's.
You like the black and white, very
I do.
Art Deco.
Yeah. It pleases me aesthetically.
I have to agree. I like the Claridge's.
Well, seems like I'm being outvoted, so...
What about Frank? What's his opinion?
Yeah.
Well, I agree with the black and white, although my wallet says different, but we'll spring for a trip.
How long are we staying? How many days?
Well, there's the thing. It's a trip to Europe. You would probably expect to be staying there at least a month, just because it takes so long to get there. It's not like you'd want to immediately come home, after 3 days of being there. So you plan on staying. I mean, you could say that maybe you want to stay 2 weeks, but hell, you're in Europe. You might as well stay
For a
little
whole
bit
month.
longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, let's stay at the Claridge's then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll book
Okay.
that.
Okay, so he books you at the Claridge's, and the ship, I mean, you have to book it well in advance. Your ship will be leaving on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, and you should be arriving, either December 31st or January 1st, somewhere in there. You correspond back and forth a bit with Professor Smythe via telegram, and he's very excited that you're coming. He says that he'll make sure that James meets you at your hotel, and you guys will get together and have tea and show you around. And the British Museum has this fantastic new Mayan exhibit. And so you plan your trip.
Yep.
And we can then skip ahead to, it's Christmas time. You spend Christmas with your families. Now, what are your guys' plans? I mean, are you going to go alone? Are you going to take your family? Or are you going to... It depends on if you feel like your family would... I mean, want to go is one thing. If you could afford it, that's another.
Well, my family lives in England, so I could actually visit it when I'm there.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I'll take my family. I have the money. I have the savings, so I may as well bring them along. They've never been to Europe, and I have. So.
Okay.
I do not have family. Or at
Okay.
least none that I would feel bad if I didn't bring them along.
I can assume that Dr. Giles will bring his manservant.
Yes.
All right, so the day comes, and you all get on board the SS Leviathan. Headed for Europe. Lovely ship.
Not a lovely name, but
The great sea serpent, or whatever it is the Leviathan was. The alligator. Depending on who's interpreting the story. All right, so your trip to London. We don't really have anything on the ship. The ship is luxurious. It's just actually it looks a little rough on the outside because it was actually used during World War I as a troop carrier. But since then, actually just last year, the interior was completely refitted and all done in an Art Deco style. So the ship is actually quite luxurious. The staff is wonderful. The food is delicious. You sit at the captain's table at least one evening, and he tells stories that are very interesting. But other than that, the trip is uneventful. You make fairly good time, and you arrive at... Oops, where is it? I don't think you go directly to London. I can't find that info. It's not that important. Anyways, you arrive at the docks, and you have already, of course, booked your hotel in advance. Your luggage is taken and delivered directly to your hotel. The equivalent of limousines, their touring cars come to pick you up and take you to the hotel, and that is where you are staying. So let me pull up. Let's see. You're staying at Claridge's, right?
Yes.
Let's see. Here's my map of London. Now, if you look, you can see that Claridge's. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's right about right there, near Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if the Imperial Institute is there, but it's nearby. Oh wait, it is there. It's number 1. Oh, so it's not far at all. It's across the Hyde Park on the other side.
Just to be clear, we were invited as guests, right? We're not the ones who are actually giving the talk.
No, you're invited as guests.
Right.
And it's really a big deal. I mean, he mentioned in the thing that he'd beaten Marconi, so the people at the Institute felt that he was a more important lecturer than the inventor of the radio.
Also, Smythe is the presenter.
He's the lecturer. He's
lecturer.
the one who's been invited.
Oh, okay.
Lecture. So let's see. Let's move on. So you arrive on December 31st, and you're taken to your hotel, and it's lovely, and you're taken to your rooms, and they're quite luxurious. I assume that each of you, well, the ones of you with families probably have your own suite. I don't know if the rest of you want to share a room or.
No, I have my own room.
All right.
I have my own room as well.
All right, you all have your own rooms, but they're all right next to one another, so you're quite close. Nothing happens on December 31st, but January 1st, in the morning, when you guys are all having breakfast, James Beddoes arrives, and he locates you, and he's like, well, I'm so glad that you've made it. The professor is very, very excited to see you. How was your trip?
It was very pleasant.
I personally don't like ocean travel. I get seasick. How was it rough at all coming across?
No, it was quite uneventful, especially for this time of year.
Oh, that's wonderful. The professor would like to meet with you this afternoon for tea at 4 o'clock. Yeah, he's unfortunately a little busy at the moment because he's preparing for the lecture. And tomorrow he would like very much to go with you to the British Museum to see the Maltzy collection. If that's what you'd like.
That sounds quite nice.
Right.
Yes.
And then on Wednesday, I think it's Wednesday. Yes, on Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the evening is the Challenger lecture at the Institute. So And of course, that's formal. There's a meal, there's a dinner, and everything beforehand. And so, anyways, you guys talk for a while, and then he leaves. What would you guys like to do from now until 4 o'clock? You are in London. Think in terms of, you're on vacation. So.
I think I would like to take a walk in Hyde Park.
Okay.
And I'll walk along the Thames with my wife Annie and my son Donald.
Okay.
I will do something really nerdy and head to a bookshop.
Okay. There's quite a few bookshops around town, around London town. And do any of you do anything interesting? Do you do any sightseeing? Do you want me to describe? Part of this part, is very natural and normal, so there's not much excitement going on.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I understand. So, while walking along the Thames, we see the bridge, and I guess we'd go see the London Bridge, and then Big Ben is just right across the way, so we'd go see Big Ben. Maybe Buckingham Palace is right next to. No, it's not. It's not next to it, but it's there. So we'd probably go see Buckingham Palace.
Okay. So you do some sightseeing, and towards as the afternoon comes and starts to get towards 4 o'clock, you have the address of Professor Smythe at St. John's Wood. You can simply ask, where that is from, a cabbie or have them take you there.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Let's pull up Professor's. So you come to this stately little home, which is Professor's. And there's smoke coming out of the chimney, and it's a chilly day, but there's no. It looks like you can tell there's places where it snowed recently, but most of the snow is melted at this point. Although it is still winter, it is chilly. You're all dressed warmly. And what do you do? I always say, what do you do? But you're going to go up to the door and knock. So go ahead.
I guess I'll go up and I'll knock.
All right. You knock on the door, and very quickly the door is open, and it's James Beddoes. And he's like, well, you've arrived. Please come inside. And he takes you in, and let's see, the professor, I've got a picture here. The professor stands up. He was sitting in a chair. He stands up, and he very warmly greets you. Oh, I am so glad you finally made it. I am just beyond excited myself with the data that you sent me. This is the culmination of my research. Please come inside, have a seat. James, would you get tea for everybody? And he's like, certainly, sir. And he goes to get the tea. Well, how was your trip? Did you enjoy the beginning of your adventure?
Yes, it was uneventful, but yes, it was quite pleasant.
As well, he says, I hope you're excited. I've really wanted to go see this Malze collection at the British Museum. Of course, I've been working away at my speech for tomorrow evening.
Are you prepared? Do you think you're ready for it?
I think I'm prepared. It's I've been working on this research for quite a long time.
And what is the culmination of your research?
Well, I mean, part of it. What I'm really going to talk about is what we would call hauntings. I don't want to spoil the surprise. Maybe you should just wait and see what I'm going to talk about. Says, anyways, we'll just say you spend a pleasant afternoon chit-chatting with him.
All right.
And then that evening you leave. And so the next morning, I'm skipping ahead because there's really nothing that happens here. We're just moving ahead. The next morning, you're met by Beddoes, and there's a big old Rolls Royce, and the professor's in the Rolls, and there's actually a couple of them. So some of you get in one, and the rest of your family gets in the other, and you drive to the British Museum. Now, the British Museum is a magnificent collection of books. It's a museum and a library. The library itself looks like this.
Oh no, that's library.
Yeah, it's something else. Thousands and thousands, like hundreds of thousands of books. It's also got the library itself sits kind of in the center with let's see, the library sits in the center with the museum sort of built around the outside. So you have to actually walk through part of the museum to get to the library. But he takes you to show you the library, and then you move to another part of the building where you go through some beautiful 17th century archways, and you go into the museum part. And he says, you're welcome at any time to just wander the museum and see all the other stuff, but let's go directly to the Malze collection.
Yeah.
So you go in, and they've gone out of their way to dress the place up to where it looks very South American, and you begin to look at these things, and these are some of the highlights of the objects that you see when you're there. He tells the story that apparently there was an explorer who went down there, and he managed to confiscate quite a few artifacts. He personally thinks that they should have been left there, but the British Museum has he would say, he says it jokingly, but a nasty habit of taking things from other countries and bringing them there. There's lots of Egyptian artifacts and so forth that were swiped.
Liberated
from those heathens. All right. So you spend the day looking at that. Now, for the rest of the day, is there anything that you guys want to do at this point, or shall we just skip ahead?
We can.
All the way to the lecture if you want.
Yeah, pretty much I'm just going around the museum, looking at the library, looking at different artifacts, different parts of the museum. I do come back to the Mayan thing, the Mayan section. I find it fascinating. But yeah, but pretty much I'm just touring the museum.
Okay. And there's all the other little things to see in London, and you all have a wonderful time with your families. Okay. The night of the lecture, you all get dressed up, and you head on down to the Imperial Institute. It's maybe 7:30 when you arrive.
Do we take the two of us that have families? Would we take our families to this, or is this like a official, like only professionals can be invited?
I would say in this case, you probably would just be yourselves going. There's limited room. The place it's like the Oscars.
Oh, okay.
So there's kind of limited room as to who you can bring with you. But your wives and companions will, enjoy a spa evening at the Claridge's. So here's the Institute, and kind of what the lecture room looks like, the banquet hall.
Okay.
Quite magnificent. Sorry about all the pictures and stuff as we go along.
It's actually wonderful. I like it.
All right.
Yeah.
So, people are mulling around, and people are talking, and there's obviously all kinds of dignitaries, and there's people from other countries, and there's, you see people from Asia in turbans, and you see people, dressed in robes from Africa, and you see people in fezzes. Fezzes have become popular in London in the last few years, and it's very international. And some of these people are pointed out to you. Professor Smythe himself. You are sitting at Professor Smythe's table, and he'll point out to you, oh, that's that's Princess whatever, and that's this person and that person. So anyways, after a bit, people start to sit down and food is served. Dinner begins with an appetizer of stuffed mushrooms, followed by a light beet salad, then a delicious mushroom bisque. The main entree is beef bourguignon with glazed asparagus and rice pilaf. Dessert, for those who are interested, will be served after the lecture. Over the din of the crowd, there is heard the tapping of a silver spoon upon a crystal glass, and the master of ceremonies, Mr. Rayner, calls the challenger gathering to order. He leads off with a please return to your seats notice, and after everyone has had a few minutes to do so, he continues his introduction. After general recognitions are given to the many and various contributors to the Imperial Institute, Mr. Rayner speaks of the illustrious past lecturers such as Louis Pasteur and Zeppelin and others such as this. He then lists the many academic achievements of tonight's guest of honor. Tonight, our speaker is Dr. Julius Smythe. His rigorous skepticism and methodical analysis earn him a high reputation as a debunker of mediums, spiritualists, fortune tellers, prophets, holy sites, apparitions, and so on. Even more so, his steadfast refusal to give any hint of his topic for tonight have earned him the respect of inquiring minds. And everybody laughs. Please give a warm welcome to this year's Challenger lecturer, Professor Julius Smythe. Professor Julius Smythe everybody claps. He rises from the seat at your table, and he walks up to the stage. He shakes the hands of Mr. Rainier and turns to the podium, where he arranges his notes. He thanks the audience for their kind applause. He thanks Mr. Rainier for his kind introduction. And as he speaks, he's very amusing. What you've heard many times in his way of speaking. He's entertaining. He's very precise, and he recounts with relish the clever deceits and his clever exposures of occult charlatans and pretenders. The laughter is general and ongoing throughout. There proves to be, however, categories of repetitious phenomena offering no simple elucidation. I refer to the poltergeist or to the traveler who suddenly finds himself dozens or thousands of miles or years from where he stood moments before, and to the haunting. My presentation tonight concerns the last. I say haunting and not ghost or spirit, because alone of such epiphenomena, haunters can be buildings, lanterns, coaches and fours, swords, and so on, as well as men, women, dogs, bears, processions, even armies. Worldwide, the store of casual anecdotal information concerning haunters is enormous. And I say epiphenomena because the haunters are not linked with specific observers, and the haunting presumably occurs with or without witnesses, as we shall see. Thus, perception of such an event is secondary to the event itself. The essential characteristics of haunters are simple. The person or thing must have existed. It must have disappeared in some sense, and then it must reappear once or many times. The location of the phenomena may stay the same, or it may change. That which appears may be partial and insubstantial, or it may be solid and real-seeming, as any member of tonight's illustrious gathering. No other conditions are needed. Dr. Smythe then projects slides of 3 hauntings in detail. A London hansom cab driving down an alleyway, a Norwegian woman descending a staircase, and a very familiar racing ship, the Valkyrie Ii, sitting in a pond on a Bolton, Massachusetts farm. Each incident was studied and photographed simultaneously from at least 3 positions, allowing accurate scaling of apparitions. The good doctor is able to demonstrate several characteristics shared by the 3. The 3 apparitions do not coalesce from points, as most tales describe, but emerge suddenly from invisible planes, as if passing through what Smith terms the curtains of perception. Each is semi-transparent. He traces a clear passage of a wave through the sailboat, for instance, and shows that the image causes no froth or ripples on the water. It doesn't resist the water, and is in fact slightly above the water. In other slides, the audience sees the second or third photographers through the image of the apparition. Each apparition glows appreciably, as Smythe demonstrates by isolating the reflections from nearby objects. Sampling attributes part of the glow to ionization, but not all. Careful indexing of the reflections indicates that the level of ionization varied randomly from each event. The rate at which these 3 apparitions manifested motion was, in comparison to normal movement, slowed by a consistent half in each case. Smith points out a ripple passing through the sail of the Valkyrie II. When the 16 millimeter cinematograph film of it is speeded up appreciably, the ripple seems normal, and while the movements of the photographers seem ridiculous. So does the staircase descent of the Norwegian woman seem less unusual when speeded up. The horse drawing the hansom cab swishes her tail casually, as if discouraging flies, rather than making slow and malevolent gestures. Historically, each of these 3 apparitions was held to have disappeared, not to have been killed or destroyed, though this observation could not be said true of every apparition. Comparatively, instances of touchable, solid apparitions are relatively rare. One might wait many lifetimes for a chance. Such apparitions seem not to be uniformly preserved. The south of England, for example, has been settled by man for many thousands of years, yet the vast majority of hauntings seem to have been produced in the last 5 or 6 centuries. Only a handful survive from Roman times. Smythe concludes by observing that in the past 30 years, science has begun to learn about that which cannot be seen or normally sensed, and that some behavior on the atomic level is impossible in the greater world. He has come to think that hauntings offer clues to so-called indefinable ways of arriving at or opening a way into other dimensions. It is my belief that such hauntings represent clues concerning a natural universe much larger and much stranger than we imagine. The walls of what we perceive as normality have a subtle flexibility. The spectral hauntings I have discussed represent attempts, perhaps random, perhaps purposeful, certainly unsuccessful, to return to this time and space by elements of it somehow removed. If we are energetic and not a little lucky in our observations, students of paraphysicality may one day be able to move up and down time, or to travel globally with minor effort, or to perceive that which at present lies completely beyond our senses. What waits beyond remains the supreme question which, for the present, each must answer for himself. Thank you. And the people clap. I hope y'all took notes.
I do not clap. I do not clap.
No?
No, well, I mean, it'll make sense. But.
All right. And so people, shake his hand and all that, and he comes back down to the table where you are, and they begin to serve dessert. Well, what did you think?
It's quite fascinating.
Well done.
Well done.
I thank you very much. So, I would like you to do a spot hidden.
All of us?
Sure.
The other hauntings he was talking about, it was the Norwegian woman.
Right, coming down the stairs.
It was a horse and buggy cab?
Yes.
Okay. And then
I made my
Arbo.
spot hidden, by the way.
I'm sorry, say that again, Wayne.
I said I made my spot hidden.
Okay.
I severely failed.
So he was saying that all three of these hauntings all had very much similarities between them?
Yes, very strong similarities. The speed at which they moved, the fact, he detailed them, that you could see through them,
Right.
that
Okay.
they seemed to be perfectly three-dimensional. And he showed also films and other photographs of these same things, taken by other people, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Tom, I also passed my spot hidden, just to let you know.
Okay. Now, those of you who's passed your spot hidden, you've noticed many people, international and otherwise, that are congratulating Professor Spy. They want to shake his hand. They want a word with him. All very casual. But those of you who passed, you notice there's a man standing over against the wall. He's only about 6 feet away from you, because you guys are a little over to the side so that he could come up the steps. He seems to be an Arab of some sort. He's wearing a fez, and he seemed for that moment to be staring rather intently. When you notice, and he notices that you notice, he sort of gives you a little smile and bows, kind of embarrassed, and he walks away.
Can we see where he walks to? Does he sit down at a table, or does he just leave the room?
He leaves, yeah. He doesn't leave quickly or anything. He also actually, it looks like he gestures to a few people here and there as he's walking out, but he seemed embarrassed that you noticed that he was watching.
Now, was he watching us, or was he looking at Smythe?
Well, yeah, he seemed to be looking. It's hard to tell because he was looking at your table. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And okay. Other than that, dessert is delicious, and
If I get up, would I have been able to follow him at all?
probably not. You wouldn't have made it there fast enough. There's just too many people crowding around.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now that he's spoken, they all want to speak. And
Mhm.
just we would all be having our picture taken with him, but they're having their painting painted with him.
I will talk to Professor Smythe, and I will ask if I can get copies of his findings from his other research that he's done.
Yes, certainly. I'll send copies I'll be sending most of this also back to the Arcane Society.
Okay.
Yes, I always share my research with it. Would you all like to drop by this evening for a little nip after?
Oh, absolutely.
Say around 10 o'clock back at my place.
Now you're talking.
Yes.
What is the sitting order? Like, there's Smythe, and then who's around directly nearest Smythe?
Well, let's say you and where did my names go? Just had all of your names right in front of me. Oh wait, I shoved them under my keyboard. That's no good. No, I didn't shove them under my keyboard. Jeff's character.
Frank.
Frank.
Right.
Yeah, you guys are sitting there, and then Dr. Giles and come on, where did it go? I must have shuffled it into my paper. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, and so Dr. Giles, Dr. Savior is on one side, Everett's on the other, and go ahead.
I lean in to Smythe, and I whisper to him if I could speak with him privately.
Of course. I don't know where we're going to find any privacy here, but yes, what would you like? We can step over there in the alcove.
Sure. And I stand up and I just I smile and I nod, and I step over to the side with him. And as soon as we're away from the group,
what can I do for you?
I kind of put my hand to my ear. I assume that there's some music.
Yeah.
And I say, do you really think that researching this sort of thing is really the best thing?
You're wondering if there's any danger involved.
Well, I once read a man say that he had revolutionized sound, and you know how that went.
Yes, of course. I can't really answer that question. I believe that it's possible that scientific investigation can lead to disaster. But does that mean that we shouldn't pursue scientific investigation when we can't predict where it will actually lead? It could just as easily lead to revelation. It could lead to changing the way we live our lives. Feeding the poor, for instance, might be around the corner, and we just haven't stumbled upon that bit of science yet. I personally believe that we should look.
All I'm saying is that we should be careful in the next steps of whatever you're going to be doing. Also, do you think that you should have informed us in any way? I mean, you know that if you had told us this beforehand, we could have done more research. We could have, investigated further.
Well, I think that you did a very thorough job. These other pieces weren't anywhere near you. I have other colleagues in other countries here and there that are similar in many ways to the Arcane Society, though nowhere near as well organized. I trust people.
I worry for the well-being of searching for things beyond what we see.
I understand. You are infinitely qualified to be critical of such things, considering the past that you've had.
I'm going to step out for just a bit. I don't need dessert. Enjoy. I'll see you back at 10.
Well, okay. Please do join us though for some after dinner. We can talk more then.
Yeah, I nod and I give a slight smile, and I turn to look at the group and I wave slightly, but I leave the room.
All right. So Professor Smythe goes back to the table.
What was that all about?
Well, you know that Eldridge has in the past been disturbed by some things. So this just touches on that.
I see.
I'm not really at liberty to say anything more than that, but Eldridge has always been sensitive. Anyways, please. Now I must go and greet some of these others, but please enjoy yourselves, and I'll meet you back at our place at my place at 10 o'clock. All right?
Okay. Indeed.
Oh, it's so good to meet you. Yes, of course. Yes. And he goes off.
So I'll like wander around and bump elbows with some of these other rich folks, and I'm actually looking for the Arabian man that we seen earlier to see if he's anywhere around.
Well,
yeah, I think before you got up to wander around, I would, catch everyone's eye except for Eldridge, and just, did everybody see that? Did we all see that man with the fez?
I did.
Now bear in mind too that there are a lot of fezzes in the room. It's like I said, it's become a popular fashion statement for the English. There's a lot of international people, and there are a lot of people that are looking at Professor Smythe right now. So it wasn't that unusual, but it did seem
just the way he left.
The way he was disturbed that you guys noticed that he was watching. That was what was weird about it. Nobody else gives a damn.
I see.
And you didn't get as clear a look. He could still be here because there are other men with fezzes that are of the same complexion and relatively the same height. Of course, there's some that it's obvious. The guy who's 6 foot tall, it's obviously not him, and that little short guy over there, it's obviously not him. And that white guy over there,
grabbing people by the shoulder.
Yeah.
What
are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm not actively looking at people's faces, but I will mingle and see if I can recognize him as I'm walking around. And if I lock eyes on him and he sees me, then I'll approach him.
All right. Well, you are unsuccessful. You don't see the man again. And after you're there, perhaps for another hour, and you've had your dessert and everything, people start to wander out, and they start to go home, and it's now about 9 o'clock, and you're going to go over to the professor's at 10.
Okay.
And indeed, once again, we'll just skip ahead. You go over to the professor's that evening, and you spend a couple of hours, almost till midnight, chit-chatting and drinking brandy and smoking cigars, if that's what you smoke.
Right.
And do any of you have anything you want to say to him before?
No, but as we're there, and I'll have my drink. I'll look
and
out
he's telling stories, and the way he does.
I'll occasionally look out the window to see if there's anybody that's standing outside trying to look in or something like that.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
There's nothing like that.
I wanted to ask him if there was anything specific that led him to tie these three events together. In other words, was it just from him studying the evidence that he noticed the pattern, or you know what I mean?
It's he basically says that the first incident was the coaches and fours, the cabbie with the horses, and that actually occurred 7 years ago. And when he first saw it, he was quite skeptical, except that he knew the person involved, who was, the photographer, he would consider him highly reliable. But he sort of shelved that information. And then a few years later, the Norwegian woman footage came up, and he became far more, because of the similarities that he saw in the data, that he became far more intrigued. And then, of course, when he got the letter from the Hughes family, he felt that it really needed to be investigated. And he did all the research that he could on other sorts of apparitions, but yours was really the first solid piece, because he knew you, and he knew that he had sent you out there, and your work was spectacular. And he'd been starting the paper all along, for a couple of years now, but this is where it finally sort of galvanized.
Mm-hmm. And the horse and buggy was here in London?
Yes.
Okay.
So, anything else?
Nothing I can think of right now. So.
Okay.
Well, just looking at the ground, just kind of like, yeah, just there. I'm just physically there.
He of course, he notices, everything, and there are a few moments where he puts a reassuring hand on your shoulder, and he says something, I don't know how, something reassuring, the hauntings of our past are long gone, and you've done an outstanding job on all the other stuff, the New York stuff, and so you've got a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, and every time he says that, I just nod, like, yeah.
And he mentions also, he said, I couldn't have done some of this without James helping me. He's assisted me with just about everything that I've done. He's been doing that for years, since so long before my wife died. And of course, you guys know James too. James Beddoes it's kind of a fixture along with the professor, even when he was at the Miskatonic. So other than that, your evening sort of ends, and you go back to your schedule of sightseeing and so forth for the next couple of days. You might want to, travel out to some of the more the English countryside and do things like that. Now, on where's my day list? Day list. I think that some of my papers have vanished into. They'll show up 3 years from now, somebody else's desk. Okay, let's see. That was Wednesday, January the 3rd. The 4th, you continue to amuse yourselves in London. The 5th, nothing eventful happens. You're enjoying the luxury of the hotel. You're enjoying, the people of London are very friendly. On the 6th, Saturday the 6th, you are sitting around having breakfast, and you're browsing through the newspaper. Now, I'm going to put this up on the screen, and it's 2 pages from the newspaper. You can read through it out loud. You can read it privately. Maybe somebody should read bits and pieces. I just assume, how many of you are there? There's 4 of you?
Mm-hmm.
two of you pick left and two of you pick right.
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 Okay. So
some left.
that means you. Okay, so the right ones read the right side and the left ones read the left side. You can just sort of corral. You can just sort of visually read through it, and it'll be a little quiet here for a second. Let me pull it up. Where is it? Here we go.
We need some good interlude music.
Okay, I'll sing.
Some elevator music.
All right. Can you guys read that?
Blurry.
Is it pretty hard to read?
No, it cleared up for me on my end.
My screen's frozen, so I can't. There we go.
Oh, yep, it disappeared. Oh, it's back.
There we go.
There it is.
It's a little hard to read for me.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Well,
Oh no.
why did you suddenly exclaim, "Oh no"?
3 bodies in hotel. That's bad. In our hotel?
Let's see if I can make this any bigger. Don't think that I can.
There's that car again. I've seen that car ad before.
That Ford
Actually,
America car.
I just realized that the Gillette thing is on both pages.
Yeah.
They're paying extra for that. I
do see.
actually.
Uh-oh.
I see
Yep.
that too. Yep.
What?
Smythe's name. Professor Holmburns.
Oh my god! Oh no! Tom!
And Beddoes ran out before the fire started and is currently missing.
Beddoes.
Ah,
How
that's
could he
better.
do this? Do we all see this? Is this just on all of our pages?
Well, whoever sees it, you can go ahead and read it out loud.
Professor Holmburns fears for his safety. Professor Julius Arthur Smythe, a figure well known in academia, was sought today following the burning of a St. John's Woods home under mysterious circumstances. Missing also is Dr. Smythe's manservant, one James Beddoes. Witnesses saw a man resembling Beddoes run from the house just before the fire broke out. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of Dr. Smythe or Beddoes is requested to contact Detective Sergeant Rigby at Scotland Yard's Arson Division.
Oh dear.
So they're both missing.
Oh,
How far away is his house from our hotel?
Not far. You could actually probably walk there.
Well, I'm not going to walk. I'm going to run. I essentially, as soon as I read that, I'm just going to leave the hotel room. My wife and child can wait, and I just run.
All right.
Dramatic.
And
I more
the rest of
calmly, I more calmly get into a taxi and head over there.
all right. The rest of you?
We pass Eldridge and ask him if he wants a lift.
All right. Well, I assume you're all heading over there. All right.
Yeah.
Indeed, when you're coming down the block, there's just smoldering heaps where the house was. It's still smoking. Part of it has been sectioned off. It looks like there are some firemen. They're cleaning stuff up. They have extinguished the fire. They're making sure that it doesn't reignite. But the place has burned to the ground.
Oh, wow.
Are there any policemen nearby?
There's a policeman just sort of making sure that traffic doesn't stop. But there are at least 3 firemen. One looks like a chief, a fireman chief, fire chief, and they're examining the wreckage.
Who wants to take lead?
Is there anyone else from our investigating society, Arcane Society is in the U.S. Is there a similar branch associated with us in London?
Not that you know of.
So my concern is the loss of potential evidence.
How do you mean?
Meaning he was the head of our Arcane Society, and we always sent him evidence, and presumably there were copies, but I would think that with his lifelong obsession, he's probably got one of a kind, trinkets or evidence or photos or notes.
Very, very likely. Now you do know that this is not his. What would you say it? He has his family owns an English manor out in the countryside. This is where he comes when he's doing research or when he's in London. This is like his London home.
Okay.
You're not exactly sure where the other house is, but there is another house.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I just thought of this. Is there a crowd? Are there people looking at the house and looking at the wreckage and stuff like that?
A few people. There were a lot more people last night when it occurred.
When I look out to this, how many people guesstimate? 10, 20, 50?
Right now, only maybe 3 or 4.
Okay, so I don't recognize any faces in the crowd?
No.
On the street? Damn.
It looks like people who are just out naturally walking or doing what they were doing, going shopping, and they've stopped to look because, oh my God, that beautiful old house is gone.
Oh no. That damn Arab man. Fez man. I turn to the other 3, and stress is starting to get to my character, and so he's kind of like a little all over the place, but essentially what he says is, Dr. Hewitt, do you think that he'd know where the manor is? That if he has another house, then maybe he went there.
Perhaps. Let's send him a telegram. Yeah.
And looking at the fire, is it pretty much is it worth me trying to rescue anything out of or is it just ashes?
You do what you want. No, I mean, if you've ever seen a fire, there's rubble, there's stuff. There's still parts of walls standing.
So I'll try to flag down the fire chief and just convey the information that that there's important artifacts here, or potentially important, and if they could just be careful to try and preserve as much as possible.
He says, who are you people?
We are friends of the professor that lived here.
We're part of the Arcane Society.
He says, well, we really can't have you looking around. We're still trying to determine what caused the fire.
We understand, but what my companion here is saying is, if you come across any artifacts or books, if you could try to preserve them, they were pretty important to Professor Smythe.
Well, it certainly looks like there was a library here, because that helped fuel the fire. It was all paper and wood. I don't know. There may be stuff here. We're just about done with our investigation. If you wait a few minutes, I'll let you look around.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Do you suspect foul play at this point?
It's hard to tell. We're pretty sure that there was some sort of an accelerant. that helped the house burn, but we don't know what. We have found we found glass in places. It looks like towards the center of some of the rooms of the house there's glass, which doesn't seem to make sense. In any case, give me a few minutes and I'll let you look around.
All right.
So he and the other people finish up kind of what they're doing.
I'll go send Hewitt a telegram.
Okay, so you're going to head over to the telegraph office?
Yeah, send them a telegram and wait. I have no idea how long telegrams take, but you know. So, but if it's not long, I'll wait. You know, until I get a response.
From my understanding, you send a telegraph, then they send a message to the person, and the person, if they want to dictate another message, they'll do that. It should take a while for that to happen.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I'll just head over to the telegraph office, and then I guess I'll go back to the hotel and wait for the others.
Okay. So we'll just assume that you go there and you send him a telegram.
Yeah.
What are you going to say in your telegram?
Dr. Smythe's house burned down. Stop. Suspect foul play. Stop. Beddoes fled the scene. Worried about Doctor's safety. Stop. He has another house. Wondering where that is in the countryside.
All right. And you send that, and then you head back to your hotel.
Sure.
The rest of you, the firemen have gotten out of the way. They've sort of around. Go ahead and the three of you do a spot hidden.
And that is success.
I succeed as well.
Same.
You all succeeded.
Yep.
Yes.
How well did you succeed?
I have a 25 in spot hidden. I got a 20.
Mine is 75 and I got a 64, so.
Okay,
just fine.
so Wayne, you actually got a hard roll. You got less than half.
Yes.
How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, standard, regular.
Okay, so Wayne, Dr. Darkins, as you're looking around through the stuff, you can all see lots and lots of the spines of books and things, from the library that have all just been burned, and there's no salvaging anything except Dr. Darkins, your foot kicks something that looks like a leather satchel, and it's burned on the outside, but whatever's inside it seems to have been preserved,
Okay.
at least mostly preserved.
I open it and take a look.
And it looks like it is a journal.
And I start to read it.
Okay. You realize that it is a journal from the professor, and it's the first dates in it are 1893. Now, here's one of the mechanics of our game. The journal represents another scenario that we will play out as the characters in the journal. So what you can do is put this in your pocket, and at a later point when we've got time, we will begin another scenario, which is you will be playing the 1890s characters in the journal. Okay? So for the moment, you put it in your pocket. And other than that, you don't find anything in the rubble that's worth saving.
Wow.
The areas where the fire chief said that he found broken glass. I want to check that out.
You start to what you find is what look like broken bottles.
Is there any sort of I'm basically looking for some sort of oily substance that might have lingered or I'll try to smell it or see if there's anything I can pick up off of that.
I don't think that anything like that would have survived the fire. So, but they look like the bottles look like they might have been alcohol of some sort.
Okay.
Anyways, okay. So, what do you guys do after this?
Um,
Back to the hotel?
Yeah.
We head back to the hotel, and we'll wait for a response for the telegram.
Sure.
Okay. You're at the hotel, and a couple of hours go by, and there is let's assume that you guys are all together in one of the rooms, and you're very upset. There's a knock at your door, and a message is handed to you by one of the message boys, and you think it might be about the telegram, but it's not. What it is a little paper satchel with a little paper envelope with a seal on it in red wax, and inside is a business card, and the business card looks like this. Hopefully you can read it. Can any of you read that, or shall I read it to you?
I can read it.
Yeah, I can too.
Okay, go ahead and read it out loud.
Go ahead, Everett.
Okay. So, Dr. Julius A. Smythe, Lit D, PhD, Professor, Cambridge University. Then it has 134 Dowie Street, Whitechapel, and on the back it reads, "Come at once, I haven't long. For God's sake, let no one follow you. J. A. Smythe."
Right.
All right, so let's come at once. Make sure I have my Luger with me as well.
Okay, so you're heading to 134 Downey Street in Whitechapel. Okay.
Should we just assume that we all bring our weapons?
Sure. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, we bring our knives and our guns.
Okay. When you get to now, Whitechapel's not exactly the nicest part of town. Like, Whitechapel is the place where all that nastiness went on a few years ago with Jack the Ripper. In fact, it's a very slummy part of town. You find the address, and you notice as you are getting out of your cab that the door on the building is cracked open just a little bit. As you are stepping up there's little steps, it's like a brownstone. As you're stepping up the steps, the door opens and it's Beddoes. And the first thing that you notice about Beddoes is that his hands are bandaged, completely bandaged. Okay? And he's like, come in quickly. Don't let anybody see you.
I make sure that nobody. I try to look around and make sure that nobody's particularly interested in us.
Yeah.
Right. There's nobody on the street right there, but
We don't need to do a spot hidden or anything like that to see if anyone's, hiding out behind an alleyway or something like that.
no. This area is pretty much clear of people. There might be some kids playing down the street.
What time of day is it?
Right now it would be early. Well, that was morning, so we'll say it's about noon.
It's about noon? Okay, well then, alright. So it's not dark?
No. So you guys go inside?
Yes.
And as he's hustling you inside, he says, last night, Professor and I were attacked.
Can you tell us about your experience?
And he says, come inside. The professor wants to speak with you. And as you're walking, you hear from the other room. You hear, Meadows, where are you? Who is that at the door? And as you come in, what you see is you see the professor, and he's lying in a bed, and all of the hair on his head has been burned off.
Oh no, not that.
And he's obviously been burned on the side of his face, and his arms are on top of the sheets, and they're burned, and he is obviously shaking, and he's like, oh, thank God you've made it. He says, please, come inside, come. I don't know how long I can stand the pain.
Is there any way that we can get our hands on some opium to help him with his pain?
Probably not. But even if you had it, he would have said, no, I don't want that stuff. He says, listen. He says, I must tell you something extremely important. Perhaps the most important thing that I've ever said in my life. He says, I can't talk for long. The pain is absolutely horrible. Something that I was hoping would stay hidden has finally surfaced. Beddoes, take notes. So James gets his pad, and he says, I have for many years now been on the trail of a terrible occult artifact known as the Sedevkar Simulacrum. He says it's a graven image, a statue, and it is a source of incredible evil. So last night my home was invaded by Turkish madmen, hoping, I think, to gain the information that I've collected on the artifact. They tried to burn us alive, but Beddoes saved us. I hope to God that all my notes burned in that fire. I'm convinced that they seek the simulacrum for some foul purpose, but I can't. I don't know. What I can remember is this. Take this down. And he's pointing at James. He's like, the last owner of the simulacrum was a nobleman named Comte de Fenelek. He lost it just prior to the French Revolution. It was dismantled and scattered all across Europe. It was my ultimate plan to retrieve the pieces and destroy them. I thought I had plenty of time. My lecture last night was actually intended to attract those that might help me, but instead my enemies found me. Poor Beddoes has burned his hands. Please, those devils must not be allowed to recover the statue. I don't know if I have the strength left to recover from my injuries. Please help me. Find the pieces and destroy them. This is what I can remember. Paris was where the statue was dismembered. Some parts of it may still be in France. I believe Napoleon soldiers carried a piece of it to Venice when they invaded the city. I think that's it. Another fragment made its way to Trieste at the same time. I haven't a clue what became of it, but you might look up Johann Winkelmann. Put that name down at the museum there. There may be a piece in the kingdom of the Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes. Start at the National Museum of Belgrade. Dr. Milovan Todorovic is the curator. One part was lost near Sofia during the Bulgarian War in 1875. At that time, things of value were hidden from the invaders, so it may be buried somewhere. The final piece was in circulation somewhere in Paris, just after the Great War. and was sold to someone from Milan. I have not been able to ascertain who. Please, friends, oh my God, for the sake of everything we hold dear, do not allow this evil thing to fall into the hands of those who would use it. Like many such things, it is vulnerable to the place where it was created. Take it back to its original home, a place in Constantinople that I've come to know as the Shunned Mosque. There is a ritual that will destroy it, completely included in a set of documents known as the Sedevkar Scrolls, but I've been unable to consult them. And he begins to choke, and he's like, go quickly. God help you. And he becomes shaking and incoherent. And James says, come with me really quickly. There's something the professor wanted you to have.
Okay.
And in the next room, he opens up like a bureau, and he pulls out a valise. And he says that there's 1,000 pounds sterling in this. He says there's 205 5-pound notes. He said before the attack occurred that they were going to take the Orient Express to look for the artifact, mainly because Professor Smiles likes to travel in comfort. He knows, James himself knows very little, if anything, about the simulacrum, just what the professor's already told you. In the last 6 months, many letters and telegrams arrived from Europe. All of them were lost in the fire. Do you guys have any questions before I go on?
No, continue.
Okay. Beto says that he plans on taking the professor to a hospital in the country. They can't risk going back to their country house. They can't risk going to a regular hospital because the Turks are probably still looking for him.
Mm.
So he's going to do that, and what he says he'll do, he doesn't want to reveal where that is, because if, God forbid, they were to get a hold of one of you and you knew where it was, he will not risk the professor being compromised. But what he'll do is he'll send you telegrams restant, which means when you get to a destination on the train and you get off the train, you can go to the telegraph office right there and tell them that you're expecting a telegram. It'll be waiting for you.
Okay.
Other than that, he just reconfirms what happened. They were besieged at their home. The assailants were speaking Turkish. They tried to stab Beddoes when he opened up the door. Beddoes managed to push them away, and they locked themselves inside the house. But they threw Molotov cocktails through the windows, and the rest is
ancient history.
He says, "So we'll keep in touch." But now he says, I would have already taken the professor, but he insisted on speaking to you.
Okay.
And you hear in the other room, Beddoes, please come quickly. The pain's bad. And he's like, so I need to take him.
We'll take care of this.
All right. So with that,
Probably end there.
He leaves you, and that's where we shall end it. With now, what I'll do is I have a piece of paper that looks like it's all handwritten out with all this information on it. I will send it to each of you.
Okay.
And it's basically the notes that James Beddoes took for you.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
This was a statue, right? Or it was a book?
A statue.
Right, okay.
A graven image, a statue.
Yep.
It was broken into pieces and distributed throughout Europe. All right. So that is episode 2.
Bum bum ba.
Let's just end it there. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope you had a good time. I hope all of our people watching enjoyed themselves. And if you can, subscribe to our channel. Tune in next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next episode of... What the hell are we playing? Oh, Horror on the Orient Horror on the Orient Express.
And give thumbs up for Tom's excellent acting there.
Give us all thumbs up because they help our cause. Until next time, always remember, if there is no light left to guide your path, your only choice is to venture into the darkness. Good night.